Hi there, welcome to my channel. Are you thinking about buying a R6 or have just bought one and maybe perhaps you're a hybrid shooter like me? Then stick around and I'll tell you my experiences from this camera. So let's go. So my background is from the 7D, the Canon EOS 7D, and onwards to the 1D Mark IV, and then later the 5D Mark IV. And I think the 5D Mark IV is an excellent camera for taking stills, and it's very good for video, except you don't have the follow focus, tracking focus. Starting this channel, I quickly changed gear from the 1D Mark IV to the 5D Mark IV just because of the video qualities, the C-log, the different settings that you could make quite good video. However, the 5D Mark IV had some issues. As I said, the tracking when doing video wasn't that good, or wasn't, period. You have to do the manual focus or you will get some bad shots. And also the file sizes when doing C-log. 1 minute equals 4 gigabytes of file size, and I think that is a little bit too much. I had to upgrade a lot using that camera, both computer wise and storage wise. And also the files were so big that it was kind of hard to get them into the video processing program. But anyway, so when the rumors and the specs came about the Canon R6, I got interested, and during the winter of 2021 I decided to buy one. However, it wasn't that easy to switch from 5D Mark IV to the Canon R6. They stripped off some good features from the 5D Mark IV and added some other that was good. So of course, like everybody else, I scoured the internet for tips and tricks and found a lot of them, but I didn't find one that covered the hybrid photographer settings. If you don't familiar with the concept of hybrid photography, for me that is taking stills with good quality and taking video with equally good quality. Doing hybrid photography is a little bit awkward sometimes. You have these spectacular scenes that you want to get into a memory card, and you're constantly thinking, should I take a photo or should I take video? And the ability to easily switch between these two modes are very important. And the 5D Mark IV was quite good. You had a switch, video or photography. So you could easily have settings on your custom settings 1, 2, 3 for different types of photography or video. That is not the case in the R6, so you do have to do some tweaks and especially focus on my menu list that I will go through later on. So in this video, finally, I will tell you some of my settings. I will tell you my menu list and some comments about why I do that, have those settings. And also, if you haven't already bought one, I could tell you a little bit about my thoughts about my pros and cons with the R6. But let it be clear, as soon as I started to use the R6, I found that turning back to the 5D Mark IV wasn't an option, so I quickly sold that one. So let's dive into it. I brought some notes, so let's see how this goes. First off, I will call it the red menu. It's the photography menu. And number 1, image quality, raw, of course. Anything else doesn't make any sense to me, but you already know that probably. Crop mode, use full mode. If you're taking stills, The only thing that happens is that you will get less resolution, so keep it full. However, when it comes to video later on, you can have some different settings there. I will get into that later. If you switch on to video mode and go to the menu red 1, the photography mode 1, set the shooting mode on manual. You don't want the camera to decide what settings you are taking video in. And notice that the movie record is only available in video mode. So you cannot do the settings in photography mode. You have to switch to the video mode. Jumping off to the red menu number 7. IS mode, I keep that always on. No matter if it's on the tripod or not. So start out with that. The image stabilization is quite good. For wildlife, as I do, you often end up in low light situations and you desperately need that stability. Exposure simulation. That is a very good feature. I don't know how people managed without that earlier. All the things you have to do by determining the light or the result by knowing all the numbers and so on is easily fixed by having exposure simulation mode. You will in the viewfinder see how the picture will look like. You will instantly notice if the light is too harsh or the exposure is too slow, so you get a dark image. You will see that. You intuitively see that and change. That's a very good feature. Jumping off to the red menu number 9, movie record quality. These settings doesn't affect the movie quality in the video mode, and here's a big difference. If you do the video recorder settings in video mode, you will have a manual control over everything. But if you start filming in a photography mode, which is possible, you will not have any control, more or less. Switching menu, going to autofocus number 1. Servo AF enabled. Autofocus metering, I choose spot. And you're thinking, what spot? Isn't this camera famous for tracking? But I will get into that later on. So just trust me on this one, use spot. I mainly shoot, that sounded bad. I mainly take photos and video of animals. So subject to track is for me animals. If you're doing sports and anything, choose people or humans. I don't remember what it is, but not animals. Continuous autofocus, I have disabled that. I found that every time I just pointed the camera in another direction or just pointed it, it automatically tried to autofocus, which means that if you just did a quick you turn the camera in a way off your target, it would autofocus on something else, and when you try to get back and take photos, your autofocus is way off. So continuous autofocus disabled. However, movie servo enabled. This is one of the things that I missed on the 5D Mark IV. Having video automatically, continuously, having the focus tracking. There's some people in the background, I know. Touch strike disabled. That's more of a personal experience. I don't use it, and I don't want to risk that if I'm touching the camera I will change something. But if you have tried it and you like it, of course you will use it. It isn't important, but for me it doesn't work. I always use my left eye, so I will always block the screen with my cheek and my nose. So getting a thumb in there is a little bit awkward. If I use my right eye, I will have more area, so to speak. I don't disturb, I won't pick my nose trying to just autofocus. So I have disabled that. You're feel free to do whatever you like. Autofocus menu 2, assist beam off, always. You don't want any lights to light up the subject if it's an animal and it's low light. Just off with that. Autofocus 3, servo AF. Here you can do a lot of settings. You can tell the camera to, this is a subject that moves quickly, or this is a subject that moves slow, I want you to do this and that. You have to figure out what kind of subject and what gives you the best result. I wouldn't recommend anything, but you can see here on the screen that what I got. Autofocus 4, switching subject. This is also something that you have to test your way to find out the best result for you. I have it in 1, but well, you can have it anyway. Like this is a little bit more of personal settings. You have to do it. It's your work. It's your handling. You have to figure this out for yourself. I don't think there's a special way or a good way or best way for doing this. It's your experience and your motive that decides. Lens drive. When autofocus is impossible, I turn that off. Lens drive when autofocus means that the camera will try to hunt to find focus. And I find that more annoying than satisfactory, because one of the tips I will give you later on is you will have to have your hand close to the focus ring anyway on the lens. So having this hunting means that if it starts to hunt, you will have to do more manual work to get back to focus quickly. Going to the yellow menu, and yellow menu number 2, video systems. Today it doesn't matter. You're probably watching on a computer, and but there are some differences. If you choose PAL, which is the European way, if you call that, to have it, means that you will be able to take photos in I think 24 frames or 25 frames per second. But if you do NTSC, you will do it in 30 seconds, more or less. Watching it on a computer doesn't matter really. I have it in NTSC because I like to have the higher frame rate. I think that is looking better for me, but also that is a personal opinion, of course. Same menu, beep off, please. Before R6, people were always calling out to us, why don't you shut the beep off? It's disturbing. I found nowadays, I'm thinking about why don't you shut the shutter sound off, because now you can take photos silently. But having a beep is, I don't know why. It doesn't help you in any way. You will see the result in the viewfinder probably, and it's only annoying, and it might scare some wildlife. It does annoy the cameras that's sitting beside you. Power savings, yes. Okay, auto power off. I noticed that when it shuts down, it shuts down. So auto power off, auto power is off and it's disabled in my way. I don't like that. I don't want the camera to completely shut down. However, I will use the viewfinder and the display settings. And a viewfinder, I think it is the one that drains the most battery, the viewfinder. The display on the back, it doesn't take that much energy. I might be wrong. Please correct me in the comments, but that's how I figured it out. Okay, you don't have to take notes, you understand that. You can just pause and rewind and look at it again. And yeah, so if you have started to take notes, you can just relax. It will be there, even next time you look. Going on to yellow menu number 4. Shutter at shutdown. Closed. Enable, that is. What that means is one of the problems with these mirrorless cameras is when you're changing batteries. You will have the sensor completely open while you're taking off and putting on a new lens. If you choose this, you can actually turn off the camera, and you will have a barrier between the sensor and the void that is between the lens and the sensor. That will minimize the amount of dust that you can get on the sensor. So just remember, you have to shut down the camera. Yellow menu 5, custom shooting mode, auto update. This is feeling a little bit counterproductive in a way. If you're used to having custom modes that you put in different settings, you don't want them necessarily to change over time. But what I found is if you don't have them to auto update, as soon as the camera shuts down, it will go back to the settings you started with on that one, that is saved on that custom node. And often you have a roughly settings, at least I do. So I have one custom mode for short shutter speeds and one for long shutter speeds. But in the actual moment you will also have to tweak them a bit. And that tweaking goes back to the original setting as soon as the power shuts down. So hence auto update. So that means that it will stay where you put it. And that's the way I like it. The camera should know that I'm in BOSS, I've set the settings, and it would just keep it that way. So orange mode 3, custom buttons. Here is where you can do a lot of tweaking. And I tried some different approaches, and I think I got one that works. I have one that works really good for me now. I have been testing this camera and trying out these for at least three or 4 months now. And taking a lot of pictures. So I'm using mainly 3 settings on the dial on the top. You have the video mode, the custom 3 and the custom 2. The video mode is well, you understand, it's video. Custom 3, I use that for high shutter speeds or short shutter speeds, that is 1,000 of a second or 1,200 of a second roughly, for birds that's moving and I want to freeze the action. And setting number custom 2 is for lower shutter speed, that is objects that are still, or I want some background blurring and so on. So those are 3 that I use. I don't use any other. That means that I don't use the manual on the mode button, because it's way too far away. I don't want to have to click, 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 click every time I go to manual. So I use the custom 3 and custom 2 as my manual modes. I don't know why the reason is, but it would be natural to have the video and manual and then the custom 3, but that's not how it is today. Anyway, the shutter button, that's only metering mode start. I don't want autofocus to start on the shutter button. I will use the thumb for setting the focus, and I will have 2 buttons on the back for different focusing modes. The AF on is metering and autofocus start, and that is both in video and in photography. Same button. And the auto exposure lock with the star is eye detection and autofocus in photography mode, and in video mode it's eye detection on and off. That means that regardless of what mode I'm in, I know that the AF on button starts the focusing with spot and or focusing, and the other one is for tracking, eye tracking or eye photos, eye focusing. And then we have the AF point menu, which is autofocus point in both photography and video modes. The multifunction button, here's where I differ a bit. In the 5D Mark IV, the multifunction button was video, on and off, in my settings. And I kind of got used to that. And it does, the video button that is designated on the camera is put a little bit too far back for my liking. It's easier for my finger to just move 1 centimeter or something from shutter button to multifunction button than to twist the whole system that on my finger to get to the video button. So I don't use that. I use the multifunction button for video. And this is another good feature, using the set button to retrieve the menu. That's very easy. On the camera you will have the menu button to the left. That means if you're holding a lens, or if you're having the hand close to the focusing ring on the lens and you have to access the button, the menu, you have to take the left hand more or less back to the camera and press the menu button. But designating the set button will give you the menu immediately without shifting the support of the lens if you're having it in the hand. That's very good. If you have to close the menu, you can just touch the shutter button and we'll go back to photography or video mode. And the custom dials, this is kind of a very good thing as well. Canon have finally got 3 buttons or rings that you can change, and something that I missed. Going into menus to change ISO is just taking time. Now we have 3, and the 3 buttons, the L3 rings, is for ISO, for shutter speed, and for ISO, shutter speed, aperture. Got it, aperture. Makes it, why not earlier? There are 3 things that we use the triangle in photography: shutter, aperture, and ISO. So why don't have especially designated rings or buttons for that? Now there is on the R6. Very good. Okay, so now I run through all the menu, take a deep breath. Now I'm going into my menu. So my menu is critical, I think, for a hybrid shooter. If you're going to change different settings within the camera and you don't designate those settings that you usually know on your my menu, you will lose pictures, you will lose video, not in file wise, but the action that you want to get. So this is my tip for my menu. First up, the movie servo AF. Okay, I earlier said that the movie servo AF is perfect. It just makes video so much easier when the subject is moving towards you or away from you. If it goes just the same distance but from side to side, it's not that important. But if it moves towards you or away, that's good. But it doesn't always work. I know it's shocking, but it doesn't always work. So being able to shut down the autofocus servo in video mode is really handy. Still, you got to have the spot so you can move the quadrant or rectangle to the place where you want to have in focus, and it will only track in that area, so that's useful. The downside is you have to somewhere move that rectangle around, and here's where the touch and drag on the camera can come in handy. I don't use it, but I think that's where you have to do it. Movie cropping is my second choice. It could be the first choice, actually. So why is movie cropping? Movie crop disabled gives you almost the whole viewfinder. What you see in full is about, in video mode, is about 94-96% of the viewfinder or the whole sensor. That's okay. But if you go to crop, you will get much closer. I don't mean you will get closer to the subject, but you will, with the same quality, get a tighter shot. That means that you can almost throw in like a converter, but it's not the disadvantages with converter. You lose light and everything. You don't do that, but it's a way to get a much better shot, to get closer very rapidly, and that is very good. In the 5D Mark IV you could only have the crop mode, and I found myself often, as I've used the long telephoto lens, often getting too close or having the subject to fill more of the frame, or even getting parts outside the frame doing video. Now I can easily switch from crop to full, and sort of a way of changing lenses. That's almost what it does, and you don't lose image quality in video. So that is why I have that on my menu. movie record quality. You have to have it there. If in the 5D Mark IV you can have different movie record qualities on the custom menus. You cannot do that on the R6. I haven't found a way, since you cannot have manual mode on the R6 on the custom menus, which is strange, but that's how it is. So being able to quickly shift from let's say 4K 60 to 1080 slow-mo and back is sometimes critical. However, it's kind of fiddly. You have to do several steps to get to the slow-mo, and then you have to do even more steps to get back to 4K, which is very strange. If you're not shooting in crop, it will go faster, but if you're cropping, you have to first disable the crop and then go into the menus and enable the high-speed framing and frame and so on. Very annoying, I think. For me, it should be a setting like all others. You can easily switch from 4K 60 to 1080 120. That it should be that easy, but it isn't. Don't ask me why. Image stabilization mode is on, but sometimes it can be that you will shut it off, and yeah, my menu is the solution. You will get to find it right there. And even if I don't use the touch shutter button, there are some situations where I like to do it, and that is when I'm using the display for photography. Sometimes you have an awkward position, for instance if you're laying down and trying to bend your neck 90 degrees to watch into the viewfinder. That could be tiring, and nowadays you have the flippy screen, which is good, so you can just flip out the screen and you can take put take the shutter button there, touch shot. That's good. And also the shutter mode, if you want to, last on my menu list, the shutter mode to go from electronic to mechanical is also nice to switch between. So there you have it. There are the settings. I'm not done quite yet, but if you have any questions, I might be able to answer them from my experience, of course. I'm not a tech guy, and this is not usually a tech channel. I do more of a photography tip channel. You can put them in the comments or reach out in any other way. So now I will switch over to the cons and pros menu with this camera. It's not a menu, it's a section in this video. The cons and pros, what I experience, and I will mostly compare it with the 5D Mark IV. So here we go. I will start with the cons. The R6 freezes up sometimes. It was more frequent in the beginning. Before I updated it to firmware, I have 1.3.1, I think is the latest, and that's what I'm using right now. But still, it will freeze up sometimes, and that is, for me, it has happened when I do a lot of quick settings, changing, taking rapidly high-speed photos and switching off and on, and it can suddenly just stop, freezes up. I lost images due to that, and I don't like that. So Canon, fix that, please. The AF tracking is superb, I think. However, in low light or in low contrasting situations, it doesn't really work. I'm sorry to say. When the contrast is low, the autofocus will just go bananas, and that's where you have to shut it on. Something that I find very annoying is that, and I mentioned it, the video settings in custom mode 1, 2, 3 isn't that isn't that many as there are in video mode. It's also very, why Canon? Why? Okay, then there are some minor, I think, cons. And I mentioned high-speed video is outside the video quality settings. There is no reason that it was the same on the 5D Mark IV, but still there are no reason that it's video quality like all the rest, in my opinion. And I talked about you have to disable crop first. The camera should understand. That's Swedish. The camera should automatically understand that if I want to choose crop, I can do that, and the camera will fix it to full. It shouldn't be that hard. Some typing in the computer should fix that, I think. And also when I get return from high-speed video, the camera has totally forgotten what I was doing earlier. So it returns to some default value. I have to reset that. So, I mean, computers today, they are more intelligent than this. If I choose, for instance, high-speed settings and going from 60 frames per second, I have to change the shutter speed from 125, I think, to 250. And the camera should automatically recognize that, but it doesn't. That's because I put it in manual mode, but there should be some manual intelligent mode or something like that. Also cons, but they are minor. I think this camera is just the beginning, what we'll see in the future, but the autofocus doesn't always work. And when it, and I don't mean the tracking now, I mean the autofocus. If it jumps off the focus point and it goes to further away, it will not, and you put the subject in the square where you try to focus, the spot square, whatever you choose, it will not go back. It will just stay there. And I think that has something to do with taking off the hunting mode when the autofocus isn't there. But on the 5D Mark, it worked. You could put the subject there and it just some light presses, pushes on the button, it would find the focus most often. The R6 not, it just freezes up. It doesn't freeze it up, it doesn't work. Something that is annoying, and I think this happened also on the 5D Mark IV, is that the viewfinder tells you that you are in focus. But when you check the photos, it's not. And I think that's especially when it says that it's focusing on the eye. You see the small rectangle or going close to the eye and taking it, yeah, you're in focus. And you get back and you find it, no, it's not in focus. And I think this problem increases when the camera gets a little bit warmer. I'm not sure, I haven't had that happen so many times, but it has happened, and I think it has happened when the camera was a little bit warm. And that brings me to heat. Okay, we all know the headlines last year when the R5 and the R6 came, mostly on the R5, the overheating issue. And they have done some firmware updates, and the overheating issue isn't that big. But and I haven't had any issue with overheating during this testing period, the first period where I'm using the camera. And that is because I think there hasn't been that warm outside. It has been winter or spring, and it's rarely been over 15 degrees Celsius. But now, these days, it's now at the end of June, and during June I have had some experiences when the temperature warning has come up. And mind you, I haven't been filming continuously. I'm a hybrid shooter, so I've been doing short bursts of video on 1, maybe 2 minutes, occasionally or 3 minutes, and then taking pictures off and on. So I've been switching between taking pictures and video, and still it has raised the temperature. It hasn't frozen because of that, but it has been acting kind of weird when it gets hot. And you can feel on the thumb or the side where you handle it that it's getting warm, and it hasn't got hot, so to speak. But the autofocus has been a little, shaky sometimes, and it has been acting kind of peculiar when it gets warm. And I think this is something that upcoming firmware will probably fix. I hope so anyway. The battery drainage, I was used to the 5D Mark. It took a lot of batteries. It was eating batteries all the time. So even though I had the battery grip of using 2 batteries, I found myself that I have to switch batteries quite often. Doing a session for about, let's say, 4 or 5 hours, taking photos and taking video, it will drain out the batteries quite often. So nowadays I will shut off the camera when transporting. I didn't have to do that when the 5D Mark IV or any other. It would just stay on. But now it drains, and if I would forget to shut it off during the evening, it will have, the first time I was starting on the morning, I would have to change batteries. So there are some battery drainage in the camera for sure. Another minor con is the placement of the zoom button when using the battery grip. If you compare how the zoom button is on the camera body and on the camera grip, you will find that when using the camera grip and using the back button focusing method I was using, you will actually sometimes put your finger on the zoom button. And that is not what you want, because when you are pressing the focus button, you have a subject that you want to take photos of, and suddenly you press the zoom button, and it's just annoying, really annoying. So the placement of that button isn't very well done. Something else as a hobby shooter doing a lot of video is there is a super expensive adapter for a drop-in neutral density filter. I would think that the technology would be that today that you could actually do that in camera. You would have a neutral density technology in the camera. But even so, making this small adapter with a drop-in filter, and it's a price of in Sweden about $500 or equal 500 euros, something like that. And that's a lot of money, considering that you will give only about 2,500 or maybe 3,000 dollars. There's a big portion for that adapter. I think that is okay. I understand it's you don't produce or manufacture that many, but still, it cannot be that hard, or it cannot be that expensive. And the last con is when I bought the 5D Mark IV, I had to pay extra for the C-Log, and I did that, no problem. And you also got the EOS Movie Utility Program, I think it was, to watch these big files. The C-Log files from the R6 isn't compatible with the Canon Movie Utility Program, which is, what? Why? Why not? So there's no way to actually watch them on an ordinary computer. And I mean ordinary. You could surely beef up the system with the memory cards, other memories, and everything, that tech stuff. But I have a gaming computer. It's quite hot and lots of storage and all that, and still I cannot show the C-Log files on it. And I thought, wrongly, that the EOS utility, movie utility, would be the solution to that, but nope, not here. So sadly, that was the cons, but there are lots of pros, and we're closing up on the end here, so bear with me. Pros. I would say the AF tracking is one of the best things that I've seen so far, and it's probably better in the R5. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But it has been a game changer. I would get more keepers, for sure. The frames per second photography, the Mark IV, the 5D Mark IV, had quite a low frame per second, and I mean still photography for wildlife, moving wildlife, and Now being able to shoot between 10 and 20 frames per second is super good, really good, and making it silent. Those two together is really good. I have earlier been in situations where something happens, you see a wildlife close up, and either myself or somebody close beside me will fire off their 1DX or something. It goes like a machine gun, and the wildlife just takes off. So being able to take high-speed photos, silent, perfect. Another perfect thing is, as I mentioned earlier, being able to do video both in full and crop mode without any loss, and that's really good. That's keeping an extra lens just in the camera. That's perfect. And also now you have the compressed video mode. My computer and my hard drives love that, because now I can take longer videos and sequences without making the memories, the hard drive just explode. Getting back to the EOS movie utility, you could actually stitch together some files, but you couldn't cut them in separate. So if you had a file that was over 4 gigabytes and your computer couldn't handle that, or your hard drives, then you have to manually go in and do that in camera and save a new file. This is just stupid. So compressed mode, movie quality, that's good, I think. And I would love to have being able to do that in C-Log, but nope. You can't have everything. I mentioned silent, and finally, not finally, but the flip out screen I mentioned, that's very handy, especially getting low and having this 90-degree bend in your neck. Instead you can now flip out the screen, that's good. And the viewfinder. I think this has changed, it's had a very important part in how I take photos nowadays. Having all the information in the viewfinder. I need glasses to read normally, but today I have a large print to read of. But watching settings or previews or anything before, I constantly have to shift between my glasses and not glasses to do the photos. Because if I had my glasses on, I wouldn't see the subjects beside the camera, so I would have to pull them down to see what's happening and then pull it up and see the menu or viewfinder. It's just awkward. Nowadays I can actually forget my glasses at home, it doesn't matter. So having that viewfinder there, and also to see the exposure simulation, that's perfect. It will be an intuitive way to let you know that, okay, you're overexposing or you're underexposing the images. That's really good. Accessing the menu in the viewfinder, super convenient. And watching the histogram as you take shots, that's good. And the preview as well. So you don't have to use the display that much. And I actually use the display folded in so the display is more covered. So when I just open it, I will see a display. Many people, or as I did in the beginning, have the display outside but folded, so when you open it you have to twist it to see it. And I don't use that anymore. I have everything in the viewfinder, which consumes more batteries. So this has been a long video. I hope you haven't fallen asleep. If you have, I won't disturb you, but I hope you have found this interesting, maybe even learned something. Maybe you have something that I have missed or that you can add to the experience. Please let me know in the comments, and everybody else, of course. And if you're new to the channel, please understand that this is not a tech channel. I don't do reviews of stuff. I do short videos when I'm out taking photos, but nevertheless, sometimes something goes up there that is tech related. So why not subscribe? Never heard that before. Subscribe and like this video if you find it useful. The likes are more important than the subscribes, but both together, very good, very good. Feel free to share, of course. And if you want to see more of me, well, just stay in there. You can subscribe by pressing the bell button. You will get a notification. I also usually put up a link on my Facebook page, so you will see it there. And follow me on Instagram and see the result of all the things I've been talking about here. And I will see you in the next one.